Hello guys, and welcome to the 11th episode of the How to Make an RPG in Unity tutorial series. And in this episode, we're going to be fixing a couple of errors, and we're going to be making the inventory system work and like be able to interact with our hotbar. And also, we're going to be making it so that if you're equipping a sword, then you're going to be able to actually see it equipped. So like if we have our sword equipped on our hotbar, we're going to actually be able to see our sword appear in front of us in the game now. And yeah, so that's very exciting. And let's get started. Oh, before we do any of that though, there's a bug that I want to fix. So you can see here, if we have nothing, we get an error. We can click on nothing, and for some reason, our code still runs and makes us, technically pick up and put down nothing, which we don't want. So yeah, let's get started. So the first thing we're gonna do is, so before the episode started, I actually added a hotbar or an inventory array. I didn't do anything else though, so don't worry. So you just remember to add this new inventory array that we're gonna be using to make the hotbar interact with our inventory. And yeah, so let's go over here. And we have to state some parameters. So we can say that we're only going to run this function if obj data is not equal to null. So if we do have obj data, and only then are we going to actually run this function that makes us pick up an item. So now we can go back into Unity and we can test this out. So now you can see I can click all I want, but well, I don't know if you guys can see me click, but I can click all I want, and nothing will appear. But if I click the sword, then something will happen. Oh, so you can see here now, we can't actually place anything because technically we can't click it if the object data is null. So, um, we can fix that by actually let's just delete this because we're going to have to be doing this in the player data side. So we can say we're only going to run the code if we're only going to pick up if data is equal to or if obj that passing obj is not equal to null. So we're only going to do all of this is if the object data that's getting passed is not equal to null. So now we can go back in Unity, and everything should work. So you can see I can click all I want, nothing here will be picked up. I can pick up the sword and I can put it down just fine. So yeah, so the final thing we're gonna do for before we start making the sword actually appear in front of our player is we're going to make it so that we can interact with or make our sword interact or our hotbar interact with our inventory system. Because right now I can try to put my sword into the inventory system, but it just won't work. You can see here I'm trying to put it down, but nothing's happening. And yeah, so yeah, anyways, the first thing that we're going to need to do is we're going to need to count how many inventory slots we have. So we have 4 by 4, which is 16, which means we need to create 16 empty slots here for our inventory. And each one of these will represent one of the inventory slots. And then we can go over here and we can scroll up and create another image array called um, inventory slots. Now we don't actually need background slots because we're not going to be equipping any inventory slots. So we only really need the inventory slots. And for this, we're going to, you can see here, let's lock this so we can't click off of our player data in our inventory. And then we can come here and just copy very slowly each one of these into our image array. Now I'm just gonna cut the video here, but basically just repeat the process for every single one of these items. Now you want to make sure you're also clicking the bottom of one. You don't want to be clicking the parent object. You want to be clicking the child object. It's really important that you click the child, not the parent, because otherwise it will not work. But anyways, I'll see you after the cut. Alright, so now I finished that, and you can see here that I have all of my 16 inventory slots attached to my inventory slots array. And now basically what we want to do is we just want to kind of replicate every single one of these functions, except for these because we don't need them. So we don't need this because we're not equipping anything in the inventory. We don't need this because we're not scrolling in the inventory. Tick damage is irrelevant. Reload hotbar is also irrelevant. Actually, no, it's not. So we will need another function called reload inventory. So let's just copy this, paste this in. So reload inventory, and basically we just want to remove this to be inventory. Remove this as well, and change this to be inventory slots. Oops, and just paste them all here. Okay, that's good. And then, yep, this is all good. So the only way that we can have something in our inventory is if we put something there, for now, because in the future we might have, um, actually, technically when we pick up, it should be going to the nearest available slot in your hotbar, and if there's no available slots in your hotbar, it should go into your inventory, or the item should. But we're not going to deal with that yet. For now, we're just going to make everything appear in the hotbar when you pick it up. But for now, the only way that an item can get into the inventory is if you drag something from the hotbar and drop into inventory. So everything here works fine. And we can come over here, and we can check basically if we are going into an inventory slot or a hotbar slot. And basically how we can do that is we can create another public bool, is inventory, and we're just going to default this to be true because there's more inventory slots than hotbar slots, and it'll be easier on our fingers if we just set it to default as true. So we can just come to hotbar and then set every one of these to be false. Also click off the lock so you can actually edit these. So you can just tick these off so that because they're not inventory slots, they're hotbar slots. Just take them off. Yeah, it's quite a slow process, but necessary one. Okay, so I have ticked all of them off, or all of the ones that are not hotbar slots to be, or not inventory slots to be not at hotbars inventory slots. Sorry. But anyways, now we can come here and we can create two possibilities. Also, we're going to need to pass in another data variable called is inventory. Bool is inventory. And we're just going to pass in here is inventory. Okay, but anyways, now that we have passed in the variables, we can come back here and we can say if not is inventory, then we're just going to do the usual. Else, then we're going to do something else, obviously. And same here, so if is inventory, then we're going to do the usual. And else, we're going to do something else. Okay. So, basically, it's pretty similar. If it is inventory, then we just kind of copy paste here. Let me just check. We're gonna need reload inventory instead of reload hotbar. Is drag is equal to true, move to slot is equal to index. Hotbar index num is equal to null. So we need to change this to be inventory. Data is equal to passing obj. Yep, reload inventory. So we need inventory slots. Whoops, inventory slots. Dragging sprite, yep. Oh wait, yep. So this all checks out, and then we can just come over here and copy paste this, and then we're gonna be done. Another thing we do is we didn't set the index nums for our inventory, so we're just gonna have to set that real quick, but it shouldn't take too long. So move the slides go -1, true. Hotbar inventory. Index is gonna be data inventory slots. Reload inventory. And yeah, okay, so that should be everything. We have an error. UI manager if data is dragged. Oh, my bad. I guess how would we know? How would we know? We would need another bool. So basically, there's no way to tell if the original was a the original drag item was from the inventory of the hotbar without actually making a bool on the player data. So let's just make that real quick. So we can say private public bool is in inventory, and let's just copy this and put that there. And we're just gonna set is in inventory to be false here, and if it is from inventory, then we're just gonna set it to be true, obviously. Okay, so everything works. Now we're just gonna come here and we can just say data dot is in inventory. Okay. Yep. So finally, all we have to do, I think, is to come over here into our inventory and click on every one of these items, or each one by itself. So we have 0. This one should be 1. This one should be 2. This one should be 3. I believe that's how we did it in Hotbar, right? If I'm not mistaken. So yeah, 0, 1. Okay, yeah. So yeah, I'm just gonna do another cut here, and I'll see you guys when I'm done doing this. All right, so you can see here now that I finished. So we have 15 here for the last slot. We have 14, 13, 12, etc., etc., etc. You always remember you have to start at 0, not 1, because the arrays technically start at 0 and not 1. So now we can press play and we can test out if we can transfer between our inventory and our item slot. Oh, so we have an error. Oh, my bad. Okay, there we go. That was a very silly mistake. The reason I changed that, by the way, if you didn't notice, is that um, we're what we wrote here is that we're only going to do what we're supposed to be doing for inventory if it is the hotbar. So we basically just reversed what we should be doing. Um, so yeah, so now we can exit and we can reload the game. And when I press E, I can transfer it to the hotbar, transfer it to the inventory, and do everything in between. Okay, this is good. So now we have basically made our inventory and hotbar system work. So now the final thing that we're going to do for today's video is that we're going to make it so that you can actually use your items. So say if I have my sword equipped, then I should be able to drop it, and I should be able to swing it if I click. I should be able to see it displayed in front of me. So yeah, let's get started with doing that. So now let us continue, and we can start making our animation for our sword and for our sword to actually appear. Actually, I don't think we'll deal with animations for now. I think we'll do that in the next episode when we deal with attack. And for this episode, we're simply going to move a sword into our game. So let's actually delete the inventory, or not delete it, close the inventory system so we can't see anymore. We're going to drag the game panel here, and then we're going to drag our RPG sword assets swords into here. Now, if you don't have the RPG swords asset, I'll put a link in the descriptions below for this asset. But for now, we're just going to drag the dagger
into our player. And let's just we can position this to be. You can see on the right window here that we can see the dagger now. And I'm just going to position this in a way so that our player, it feels natural for the player. So I guess, okay, sorry, that's too far on the right or left. We need to move it to the right a bit. And yeah, so now when we press play, we do need to attach this to the main camera, and we can also unpack this prefab. But now, when we press play, you can see here that the dagger is close to us and can be viewed as equipped. Okay, so now that we have our sword, the next thing we're going to want to do is we're going to go on to our scripts and we can go into our objects folder. And you can see here we have a wooden sword. So we're going to have to make this store another variable, not just a sprite variable. We're going to have this store our game object variable as well, and probably as well as a dropped item variable. We're not going to deal with, actually, yeah, let's actually add dropping in this episode as well. But first, um, we're just gonna deal with a very simple um, uh, item instantiation process. So we're just gonna have public game object um, weapon prefab. So this prefab is going to be spawned in when um, we actually use the weapon. Um, and we can basically just go into our prefab folder, create a new folder called weapons, and just drag our small dagger into there. And now we can safely delete this because we won't need it anymore. And now for our wooden sword, we can make the prefab this dagger. And now everything should be fine. So if we go back into Unity and go to our scripts folder, and we can go into our player data, when we do equip a weapon, or sorry, ground item, um, there is no function for equipping. Let's actually just make a new function really quick and call it equipping. Equipping. Or actually no, we do have an equipping function, I think. Yeah, okay. So over here we have if I is equal to current equipped, then we're going to do so if I is equal to current equipped, then we're going to have to instantiate our game object from our player data, and we're going to have to set it as the child object of our player, main camera, sorry, and make the positions relative so that we can actually see it and move it around. So what we're going to do first is we're just going to say var instantiated sword is going to be equal to instantiate hotbar I dot game sword weapon prefab. There we go. And then the position doesn't matter, so we can say transform.position, transform.rotation, and we're going to say instantiated sword dot set parent or dot transform dot set parent is going to be our camera object. So we're going to create another instance for our camera object. And we're going to set the parent as our camera obj, and then we're going to say instantiated sword dot transfer dot position is going to be equal to hotbar dot position local position, sorry, my bad, is going to be equal to hotbar I dot weapon prefab dot transform dot position. The only problem here is, sorry, camera obj dot transform. There we go. All right, so now, actually, let me just quickly explain the code. Basically, what we're saying here is we're instantiating a new sword at a random position, and then we're setting the sword's parent as the camera obj.
so that our sword will follow our camera rotations. And then we're setting the position of the sword to be relative to the camera OBJs, and to be the exact same as our sample object, or sorry, our prefab position that we previously had. So we have an error because we forgot to set the main camera object. So let's just set that real quick. And now when we press play, so we have another error. Let's see what error we're getting. Oh, I see. Okay, so we're equipping the hotbar at the very start. Um, right. Okay. So we have to actually check if there's an item there. So we have to say if equip if hotbar I is not equal to null. So if there is actually an item there, then only then are we actually going to run this code. Otherwise, since there's nothing there, there's nothing to display. So now we press play. We can press E. Oh, okay, so it works, but we're stabbing ourselves right now. And also we're destroying everything. um, so okay, uh, we're going to need to somehow store this variable, instantiated sword, um, so we can have like a private game object, um, game object sword, uh, uh, current equipped, and we can set current equipped to be, whoops, current equipped, and we can change all of these to be current equipped. And then we also actually have to change current equipped dot rotation. You can see it was pointing at us, which we don't want to be hotbar I dot weapon prefab dot transform dot rotation. And then after that, uh, if once we scroll again, if there's nothing there, then we're actually going to have to destroy it. So we're just going to say destroy um, current equipped. And so that way we don't have like multiple weapons spawning at the same time. So now everything should work. And if we equip this, you can see, okay, okay, there we go. Okay, so I see the problem. Um, the rotation diff is different. For you can see here, um, the rotation here is 0.53 for x, but if I scroll again, or actually it remains the same, but if I look up, I believe, yeah, okay, there we go. You can see here the rotation is slightly different. Sorry, I was looking at the scale. The rotation should be slightly different. And that's because we had local rotation, I believe, or rotation in general, I believe. We actually need local rotation instead of rotation in general, because the local rotation to the main camera is completely different from the rotation to the entire world. I won't get into that in this video, but basically all you need to know is that there's a difference between the rotation of the camera, of the object relative to the camera and relative to the world. But now if we scroll up, we can see that we have this item. Um, and let's just create a drop function really quickly so we can actually drop this. So basically how we're going to actually do that is we're going to need to create a ground item for the object, like an actual ground item instead of this cube. So we're just going to drop this in the ground for now. And then we're going to prefab unpack. We're going to call this dagger small dagger ground item. We're going to add the ground item script to it. And actually, we can literally just copy our ground item, our cube stuff, um, to it. Oh, it should. Sorry, never mind. I forgot. We actually had the collider. So we need obviously a collider here. So we need a collider for the actual sword, so it can't collide through the ground. Um, and then we just need to create another cube, which will act as the main collider, which will detect when our player is going to be going through it. So we can turn off mesh collider so you can't see it, and turn on is trigger, so it's actually a trigger. You can see here is trigger is ticked on. And then we can just drag this ground item script to the cube, and we can delete this because we no longer need it. Um, and the parent should be this object, and we should have um, a rigid body to make it actually fall. So you can see here, if I drag it really high, it will fall onto the ground because of physics. Uh, so why is this not disappearing? Um, so we have here, we can actually remove the animator because we don't actually need that. Um, but for some reason the trigger text is not disappearing. Let's try again. Right, so we've collided with it, but trigger text is not disappearing. Uh, let's look at the actual object and our player. Um, we can look at the trigger text. You can see that we're nowhere close to it. Let's actually review the ground item script again. I wonder, actually no, if I press E, will I pick up the sword? That is the question. Okay, so I just picked it up. Interesting. Okay, so for some reason I'm infinitely inside the trigger. Um, so we can see here. Oh, okay, I see the problem. Okay, so right now, if anything is trigger is touching the sword, then this will all everything here will still happen. So it detects any collider. That includes the ground. So we need to have some sort of checker here. So like if other.tag is equal to player. So we're only going to do all of this if we detect the player and the player only. Whoops, my bad. Otherwise, we're not going to do any of this. So we can check if the player actually has the player tag, which it does. So now when we press play, we can get close to it and it will say press E to pick up wooden sword. It's not really a wooden sword anymore. But yeah. Another thing is when you pick it up, you don't auto equip it. So we're just gonna fix that real quick by calling the equip hotbar function. So we can say data.equip hotbar. And yeah, now everything will work. So we can just press play, and when we pick it up, it automatically is being used. So yeah, now the last thing we're going to do is we're going to make a function for when we press Q. Oh yeah, also we're going to go into our object data and we're going to create a new thing called public game object weapon or ground item. And now we can safely delete this small dagger ground item after making a prefab, of course. So we can just come into weapons and we'll drag this here, and now we can delete this and we can go into our scripts and in objects and then drag this into here, the ground items. So in our player, we're going to create an empty and we're going to drag it out in front. Let me just make sure, yeah, that's in front. I'm going to move it up here, and this is going to be called drop area. And once we go into Unity, we can go here and we can say void update if the player presses Q. So if input.get button get key down key code.q. So if the player presses Q or drop, then we're going to uh, drop the current equipped item. And we're going to say cur. I believe cur equip should be like a number between 0 to 9. So assuming that it is, then we can say um, uh, instantiate or bar p or like just something random like drop item is going to be equal to um, instantiate hotbar cur equipped, um, and we can have um, we're going to need to create a new transform called drop area, and then we can say here drop area dot transform dot position drop area dot transform. Or actually, no, we don't need transform because it's already a transform, so we can just say position drop area dot rotation, and then yeah, that's pretty much it. And we can just say we're actually gonna have to delete it from our hotbar, so we can say hotbar cur equip is equal to null, and that should literally be pretty much it. Also, we have to do um, reload hotbar, and we also have to do equip hotbar. And then yeah, that should be pretty much it for our. Oh, we're mixing a semicolon here. And then yeah, that should be. Also, we can literally just delete this because we're not going to use this again. And yeah, finally, that should be it for a drop function. Um, and yep, so we can just drag this here into the transform. And now, if we press Q, okay, well, we're getting an error. And that's because we're trying to create something that doesn't exist. So we have to say if hotbar cur equip is not equal to null. So if we are currently actually equipping something. Lydia, turn that down! So now when we press play, everything should work. So I don't know where the sword is. Oh, my bad. I deleted the sword. It's the ground item. So let's actually just drag some more swords in here. Let's just drag 2 for good measure. And now, okay. Oh, my bad. Okay. So we also actually have to check here. Um, we actually have to check if other dot tag is equal to player. Because we don't want the trigger text to disappear, even if like something else leaves the collider range. So now we press play, everything should finally work with no errors. So let me just find those swords real quick. Where are the swords? I cannot find the swords. Oh my god. Okay. I'm just gonna drag it back. I'll just oh, it's face to the ground, so it probably like just clip through. Um Now everything should finally work. Yep, you can see the swords here. So I'm just gonna try to pick it up, but there's an error. Um why is there an error? Let's see. So if not is picked up, then we're going to do all of this. Yep. Not is picked up should be. Why do you even have this spool? There's literally no point to this spool. Let's just delete this because there's no point for this spool to exist. Now when we press play, everything should work. I promise, guys. Everything should work. Um, let's press play. Why does nothing work? You know, we probably actually deleted something important. So let's actually Control Z. Okay, so let's actually see what the error is saying. Object reference not set to an object. Oh, okay. So trigger text is not set as default as something. So we're gonna have to say void on start trigger text. Trigger text is going to be equal to game object dot find, and I believe it is called trigger text. There we go, trigger text. So we can just copy that and we can paste it here. We're getting an error. Oh, it's a text mesh pro UGUI. Okay, then we can just say dot get component text mesh pro UGUI, and now everything will work fine. Just be careful. Now that we have made it case sensitive, we can't make another game object called trigger text, or our script and everything will break. So you can see here we have an error. Let's just go back. Sorry for the large amounts of errors in this episode. But yeah, I'm gonna debug this. Okay. I couldn't find out the problem. We're just gonna create a new tag called trigger text. Trigger text. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna set trigger text to be part of that tag, and then we're gonna go in this. And once you have that done, once you have set trigger text to be the tag trigger text after you've created it, basically what you want to do is you want to say come here and say game object.find game objects with tag, sorry, and then we can just delete this actually. Um, but yeah, basically just set trigger text to be game object.find game object with tag trigger text, which we have here trigger text. And yeah, everything should pretty much work. So now we can press play, and we have an error again. Oh my god. Um, Trigger text should be game object. Oh, I see. Trigger text is default as not active, which means that it can't actually find it. So now you can see here it finally works. Um, so okay, so we're going to need to somehow find a way to disable trigger text. So what we can say is um, for the first second, so we can say in void start for 1 second, the trigger text is going to be active, and after 1 second, we're going to set trigger text as not active by default when the game starts. So we can say public game object trigger text, and then we have uh, trigger text dot set active false 1. Or sorry, we can't do that. My bad. We can invoke a function that sets trigger text as false. So we can say private set as private void set as false. So after 1 second, we're going to invoke set as false 1, and it's going to be called trigger text dot set active false. And now we can just go into Unity and we can drag in trigger text. So yeah, so the problem, in case you didn't know, is that you can't actually use the find function. That's why it wasn't working when the object is not active. But yeah, now we can just press E and we can pick it up. But unfortunately, for some reason, it's not disappearing. No matter. If we drop, we get an error. And so let's actually fix this error. And we also need to fix the bug where if we pick up 2 items and when we switch items to a slot without an equipped item, the sword still stays there. So we're going to need to come over here. And yeah, let's read this. So we can say it says cannot instantiate a scriptable object with a position and rotation. So obviously we did something wrong. uh, it says here, oh, my bad. Current equip dot ground item. Okay, silly mistake there, but we fixed it. Now when we press play, everything should work. Let's also make this trigger text disappearing thing to be like 0.1. But anyways, you can see here if I press Q, it drops. Um, but you can see here trigger text.gameObject.setActive is still false. So that clever thing that we did, or I guess not so clever thing that we did here where we set it as false after a few seconds does not actually work because every time it invokes, not just at the start, it still needs to find the trigger text. So yeah, but anyways, before we do that, I just want to fix the bug where if we have two items, then actually, you know what? Let's fix this trigger text bug first.
So something really simple, so something really easy that we can actually just do is we can just reference it in our game player data. We can just say public trigger text, sorry, not trigger text, text mesh pro GUI trigger text, and we can literally just go to ground item. We can say, um, uh, trigger text is going to be equal to data dot trigger text. And yeah, that's literally all we have to do. So now when we go back into our game and press play, oh, sorry, we have to set trigger text as default not active. I forgot about that. Now when we press play, the only bug that we have left for today is that if we have two or more items, oh, we also have an error here. Okay, well, trigger text should be set as active, or sorry, should be set as trigger text. Um, oh, I see, I see. Okay, so our player's trigger text isn't actually set yet. My bad. So I'm just gonna set that right now. Now everything, the last bug that we have in this video should be our items not disappearing. So actually no, what? Oh, okay, I see. So now you can see here we're creating an infinite amount of clones. You can see on my inspector I have like 50, like 10 clones right now that are just there. And yeah, that's not good. So we can say here, um, if we're going to if we're going to scroll, no matter what, we're going to first destroy. So if we just scroll at all in general, before we do call equip hotbar, we're just going to destroy current equipped. And let's just do that for bottom scroll as well. And that should fix our bug. So now let's actually go back into Unity. And the bug should be fixed. So you can see here, the scrolling still works fine. And okay, it apparently does not work fine. So I think the clone is actually only replicated when we, okay. Um, so what we're gonna have to do is we're gonna have to just call this function no matter what. We're gonna have to destroy current equip no matter what. Um, and we can just call it here. Because if, or actually we probably need to call it here as well. Let's just call it like in every instance. Because even if we delete it or destroy it, current equipped, or actually I think we also need to set it to null. But okay, never mind. That does not work. It just deletes everything. Um, we're not going to destroy cur equipped there. We're only going to destroy cur equipped if I is equal to cur equipped. Actually, that shouldn't work. Yeah, that shouldn't work. But let's just try it anyways. Because it should just what we did there should have just destroyed the code regardless. Or not the code. Sorry, my bad. The sword regardless. Or it does work. Okay, that's interesting. Okay, yeah, but like, yeah, okay. It it only creates one now, but if I scroll to a replicate of it, it Yeah, okay, I see. Um, so I just realized what I have been doing wrong this whole time. If I is equal to cur equip, then we have to destroy it. Um, destroy current equipped. And if I is not equal to null, then we're also just going to destroy it real quick before we instantiate it. And now finally everything should work inside our game um, with no errors. Uh, now we can press play. Okay, so everything works. Okay, interesting. Everything does not work. Let's just delete. Oh, I see. I am such an idiot. Let's just delete those two because we do not need those. Um, and now finally, for the last time, everything will work. Trust me. So yeah, fun thing is you can actually interact with this. So you can actually just push it around, which is really cool. Later, we're probably gonna make like a Fallout style interaction system where you can like hold down E to like um move things around like people in boxes with rigid bodies. But anyways, you can see here everything works now. Um, and yeah. So final note before we end this episode off. In the next episode, we're gonna work on attacking. So stay tuned for that episode. But other than that, we're still close to 200 subscribers, and I just want to thank you all for watching my videos. Yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.